Although that's nothing compared to the biggest cruise ship currently sailing around the world, the Symphony of the Seas. At 1,188 feet long, 238 feet tall, and 154 feet wide, the largest passenger ship on Earth cost a colossal $1.35 billion to build back in 2016. With an amazing 230,000 gross tonnage, that is to say, its overall internal volume, this luxury liner can carry a whopping 5,600 guests and almost 2,400 crew. That's over 3,650 more people than the Queen Mary II could shuttle across the seas. And as you'd expect, there's absolutely nothing that you could call small. With 18 decks hosting 22 restaurants, 42 bars, theaters, an ice rink, and even the world's tallest slide at sea, it's more like a sideways skyscraper than a ship. But with all that junk in the trunk, this mammoth vehicle can only reach a top speed of 22 knots, which is a little more than 25 miles per hour at best. Well, she may not be speedy, but I guess that's why they call it a cruise ship and not a rocket ship. Amazing aircraft carriers. Aircraft carriers have been symbols of naval power and prestige for decades, and the bigger they are, the more intimidating they look. But while some, like the USS Lexington here, look terrifyingly large, none can compete with the sheer size of the USS Enterprise. No, not the fictional flying starship, but the longest Navy vessel ever built. At 1,123 feet long, if the Enterprise stood on its end, it would be more than 100 feet taller than London's famous Shard Building. Launched all the way back in 1961, she was designed to carry up to 90 aircraft along with 4,600 crew on board. Her flight deck had almost 4.5 acres of usable space, which is about the same amount of area as 2.5 soccer pitches. Although this ship was much more than a glorified sports pitch. At the time it was commissioned, it was the only aircraft carrier to be nuclear-powered, and 8 separate reactors drove the 4 massive propellers on either side. These allowed the carriers to reach a top speed of just over 33 knots, or, if you prefer your rates a little more grounded, almost 38 miles per hour. Truly, this vessel was one of a kind, although she wasn't meant to be. The Enterprise carrier class was originally meant to consist of 6 other sister ships. However, its escalating construction costs put a quick end to that radioactive dream. That's because this colossal carrier took 3 years and approximately $451.3 million to construct on its own. That may not sound like much compared to the previously mentioned cruise ships, but that was back in 1961. Today, inflation puts that figure at a gut-busting $3.9 billion. Yes, that's billion with a capital B. Fortunately, the U.S. Navy really got their money's worth, and Enterprise served as a part of the fleet for 56 years until it was decommissioned in 2017. It had a good run, but I guess it was time this ship faced its final frontier. Undetectable destroyers. Despite what it looks like, no, that's not a Star Destroyer gliding through the water. That uniquely angular vessel is the USS Zumwalt, a guided missile destroyer that was commissioned by the US Navy back in 2016. Now, compared to the classic silhouettes of other naval destroyers, such as the Arleigh Burke and Kidd classes, you might be wondering why the Zumwalt looks more like a floating pyramid. That's because this state-of-the-art destroyer is designed, above all else, for stealth. You see, radar systems detect objects by sending out bursts of radio energy. When this energy hits an object, it's then reflected back to the radar, relaying how far away and what size the object is. Now, most metal seafaring vessels have a rounded design, which makes them very efficient radar reflectors. However, stealth ships like these incorporate plenty of sharp angles into their designs, so that radio signals are reflected away from the radar, making them much harder to detect. So much harder, in fact, that the Zumwalt is an astonishing 50 times harder to spot on radar than a regular destroyer, and that's despite its colossal size. At 610 feet long and nearly 81 feet wide, this thing is a phenomenal 40% larger than the US's current Arleigh-Burke destroyers, making it the largest naval destroyer in the world. Originally, the US wanted to build 32 of these incredible ships, with $9.6 billion set aside for their research and development. However, construction costs for the ships were vastly underestimated, so this number was reduced down to just 3. Even so, with research and development expenses on top, the ships cost an outrageous $7.5 billion to complete each. That's more than 5.5 times what the colossal Symphony of the Seas cost to build. Well, the Zumwalt may not be the biggest thing out in the ocean, but it's certainly one of the most expensive, though it does make me wonder what stealthy Navy vessels are going to look like in the future. Maybe they'll end up with more angles inside and out than a diamond, or will they find a way to become completely 2D? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. The unparalleled Prelude. When it comes down to sheer size, there's one vessel that really looks like it's going for the title of biggest ship in the world. Although, despite all its floating features, it isn't really a ship. It's called Prelude, a floating liquefied natural gas, or FLNG, platform. At more than 1,600 feet long and 240 feet wide, this impossibly vast vessel was constructed using more steel than the entire World Trade Center complex. Not only that, but even its height, which is arguably its least impressive metric, still makes it taller than London's iconic Big Ben. Or, if you like your comparisons a little more American, that makes it taller than the Statue of Liberty. Although, unlike these monuments, this platform doesn't just sit around looking pretty. It floats out to underwater gas fields and is secured to the seafloor with massive mooring chains. These are made up of more than 25,000 links and are some of the largest chains in the world. These are attached to a central turret, which allows the ship to rotate like a weather vane in adverse weather. Once secured to the seafloor, the facility then draws up and produces liquid natural gas and other petroleum products from the gas fields below. Currently, it's installed atop Browse Basin, 330 miles off the Australian coastline, where it works to dredge up about 3.6 million tons of liquid gas every year. But just how much can it carry in one go? Well, it has the capacity to process a staggering 175 Olympic swimming pools worth of liquefied gas. And this is done over a deck that's longer than 4 soccer fields laid end to end. But while it does have 3 incredibly powerful 6,700 horsepower thrusters to help position it, it doesn't have any kind of propulsion system. That means it technically classes as a barge rather than a ship, so it relies on a series of tugboats to sail it into position. Now, don't be fooled. The Prelude may look like any other large barge in comparison to those tiny tugs, but each one is a whopping 250 feet long. And the Prelude needs all the help it can get, because when fully loaded, the floating facility weighs about the same as 6 of the largest aircraft carriers. Now, it might be a tight fit, but it looks like humanity has finally built a boat large enough to carry your mom. Damn! Which of these impressive vessels do you most want to sail across the sea? Or have you already been lucky enough to step foot on one of them already? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.